Hi, welcome to day 2 of the Control Your Cravings course. I'm Carolyn Banner, your hostess with the mostest from Body by Banner, and I'm really excited to jump into the content for today. We're going to be focusing on tools around nutrition specifically. Tomorrow we're going to go into things related to exercise and how exercise can impact our cravings and vice versa. And then on Thursday, we're going to be going into sleep and stress in more detail. I'm going to highlight some of that today a little bit. And then Friday, we're gonna wrap everything up and I'm gonna go into detail on my unique formula for really breaking our patterns around emotional and stress eating. It's called the APT response, and I'm gonna dive into that more on Friday. So as you're jumping on, just a few housekeeping items. I'm gonna review a little bit what we went through yesterday, but if you're jumping on today, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, okay? Because I know sometimes the connection can be a little goofy. I am doing this from my phone instead of computer today because yesterday the connection was kind of, the recording when I watched it later was kind of like in and out. So I wanna make sure that the connection stays strong, and it seems to do that better with my phone. But let me know if you have any questions though. I will be making sure to answer your questions, but I'll probably be doing it at the end so that I can just kind of go through the content, give you the information without it being interrupted a lot, and just wanna make sure that it's clear and concise as can be. But do want to answer your questions, so put those in the comments below and I'll make sure to answer those either at the end of this live or when I come back and go through the comments later. I'd also love to, and I know other ladies love to know kind of where everyone's listening in from. So tell me where you're at. Where are you at in the world? Put in the comments, even if you're watching this later. It's really fun. We had people from Croatia, London, Milwaukee, and Minneapolis yesterday, all over the world, and some from Asia and Australia. So definitely it's fun to kind of just know. It's a really international group in the Body by Banner community, so put that in the comments too. And if you're part of the course and joining in later and watching these with the replays via the emails I'm sending out, send me a quick email. Let me know how it's going for you, what you're learning, any takeaways that you're getting, and let me know how I can support you as we move through this course this week. And if you're not already, please put your name and email. It's completely free, but the emails that I send out every day are really important information that go along with what we're going over in these live trainings. So it emphasizes the key points, so you get a kind of a cheat sheet from what we went through in the live training, as well as important sort of work to do that takes about 15 to 30 minutes max. And what I find is that work is the real deal breaker. It takes you from knowing what to do and feeling aware of the problem, because I think we all kind of know when we are aware of the problem that we have around uncontrollable cravings, and it takes us to that point where we can actually take action and do something about it and make some real change. So doing a little bit of work is needed. I'm not gonna lie to you, it takes some work and it takes some time. So know that, but commit to maybe 15 minutes every day that you can do a little bit of work and feel some more freedom. Hey Shireen, nice to see you popping in. So that work is important, you guys, and it takes time. I'm not going to tell you that doing this course you're going to magically suddenly not have any cravings again, or and be able to magically be able to handle the cravings and never overindulge ever again. That would be a lie. These are tools to help you control your cravings. They're not going to eliminate them completely. Nothing out there is going to completely eliminate our cravings, but these tools are what I use and what I've really found relief over the last 5 years, and gone from someone, like I shared in the video yesterday, some really personal stories. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch the video from yesterday where I really go into the struggles I went through that really started when I was 10 with some pattern emotional eating behaviors around a crisis that our family went through, and then really came up again through college and my early 20s. And those emotional struggles and those stressful times really were triggers for me to go into uncontrollable binging, and kind of go through that and what I really struggled with and how I've turned that around. So these are the tools that I've used, and so I want to share those with you guys. Just want to make sure I covered all the kind of nitty-gritty housekeeping stuff. But yeah, put any questions you have in the comments. I'll make sure to answer them at the end. Put in where you're listening or watching from. It's really fun to kind of see where everyone is in the world, and we'll get started. All right, you guys, so welcome to day 2 of the Control Your Cravings course. Today we're really going to be focusing on reclaiming our relationship with food. So focusing on some nutrition strategies. Yesterday we went over the difference between hunger and cravings and really how to notice for yourself and create, again, that awareness between, okay, am I hungry? Do I really need to fuel myself now? Or am I just craving something? So again, go back and watch that training if you haven't already. And that'll help break down the difference between hunger, which is a physical sensation, and cravings, which are more emotional, stress related and are very specific and sudden. They're persistent little buggers. And what I kind of shared yesterday was that that's a gift, that they are so persistent, and that it's really helpful that there are tools for us to really be like, hey, this is something that you need to pay attention to. These are some trends and patterns that are keep coming up. And for that, we can be grateful. They can be annoying and be difficult to deal with. But again, we'll get some tools to work with it. But to be grateful for those reminders, those persistent little cravings that can keep coming up are tools for us to learn a bit more of how we can get to the root of the problem and what's maybe really triggering us. Today, I want to dive into more of how, what can really impact our cravings? What are the triggers that can turn on those cravings for us that can be so persistent and almost like uncontrollable? So I'm going to work through those right now, and then we're going to move on to specific nutrition tools to control those cravings, which I think you guys are probably all looking for. So starting first, we're going to go through some of those triggers, and some of them are food related and some of them are more lifestyle related. You might have heard of these before. There's really been an increase in awareness of lately, which has been awesome, about how imbalances in our hormones can really kind of wreak havoc on our waistline, our nutrition, and really that comes down to how they can impact our brain and the cravings that we're having. And one of the biggest things that has an impact on our hormonal imbalance can be stress. And stress can come from a few different areas. Stress can come just from our work, family lives, travel, like anything. I feel like we're all pretty stressed out a lot of the time. So it's not that we necessarily are going to eliminate stress, it's how we manage the stress and how we can maybe mediate it a bit. So stress is a huge impact, and what stress does is it elevates our cortisol. And when we have elevated cortisol, that can really trigger in our brain those desires to have those palatable foods that can often be really high in calories. So those salty, fatty, sugary foods, usually in combination of some sort, with chips and fries kind of being that fatty, salty kind of hit that we can get, or sweets like cakes and cupcakes can be more of that sweet, fatty kind of hit. Excuse me. So stress is a huge one because it really elevates our cortisol. Another way that is very specific for increasing the stress in our bodies is by having a lack of sleep. As a country, world, at least in the United States, I think in the world as well, we are sleep deprived, and sleep deprivation can really wreak havoc on 3 specific hormones. It can increase our insulin, and that can really throw off our blood sugar levels and make it very difficult to lose fat. It can increase the ghrelin hormone, which is that the hormone that is our stomach's way of saying, hey, I'm hungry. So it can like overstimulate that flag and say, I'm hungry more often than we need to. And the other way it can impact our hormones is that it decreases the leptin in our system. And leptin is a hormone that is secreted from our stomach to help us tell us that we're full. So then when we have these all out of whack, we're feeling more hungry and then in that craving kind of way, and that we're feeling like we just need to eat. And unfortunately, when we are lacking in sleep, that stressful state, that imbalance of hormones really drives us to eat more of the unhealthy things than the healthy things. So we're going to be more likely to go for pizza, donuts, and those sorts of really palatable foods that give us that hit versus going for the kale salad or the green juice and those maybe healthier options. Another thing that can really trigger our cravings are pattern behaviors. So things that where we always associate food with, for instance, celebrations like a wedding or birthday. We always have cake with those things, or when we meet with a friend, we're always getting drinks. So those pattern behaviors that we have some kind of emotional connection to, that can really be a trigger for our cravings. Also, What else can be? It can be related to sadness, times of loneliness when we turn to food. And I really went through that yesterday in the first training, just of my story of how I really turned to food when I was really feeling like scared and lonely when I was about 10 years old and my brother was really sick with leukemia, and just using it as a tool for comfort rather than maybe turning to more healthy outlets. So those learned pattern behaviors that have some kind of emotional connection can definitely be triggers for us and can create stories in our mind of how we need that food to really support ourselves. And then also just like exposure. There's been a huge shift in our culture since the 1950s with processed food and just accessibility of food all the time. At least in the United States, there's food. And when I lived in Argentina too, there's very unhealthy food available to us 24/7. We always have access to that stuff. There's always a Walgreens open 24/7 here in the States. You can hit up any place to grab that fast kind of food that's not really healthy. So that exposure, despite our willpower, can really trigger us to want those things. One other thing that I was just reading was an article that my husband actually sent me just about how it's not really willpower, it's our exposure. So how often we're exposed to these things. So that people who tend to eat more healthfully, it's actually because they just minimize their exposure to those unhealthy choices. So they're not triggering themselves as often and really being mindful of what they bring into the house or what they expose themselves to, what restaurants they choose. So really it comes down to kind of your environment too. What is the environment that you're choosing as much as you're able to can trigger and impact your cravings. And the last one too, I want to just touch on is that, and I kind of mentioned it before, but this brain reward pathway that they've been learning more about recently in the literature is that there's certain foods, those fatty, salty, sugary foods in general that are considered kind of pleasurable or more palatable. Those are known to actually trigger the brain to want more. They're addictive. They give you that endorphin hit, and so you're gonna want more and more and more of them, versus foods, even if you eat your fill of them, of like vegetables and lean proteins and healthy fats, they're not going to kind of give you that hit, that endorphin hit. So the food industry has really been playing this up and marketing those foods more, because then they have like an addicted market that people just keep wanting those foods. Fast food for one, snacks, kind of sweet packaged things, chips, all those things. People just keep coming back and back for it because of that brain reward pathway. It's that trigger, because it's like that highly palatable, salty, sweet, fatty, often in combination, that just keeps you wanting more and keeps you addicted for that hit. All right. That was kind of an overview of the triggers. So like stress, and that increases the cortisol. Lack of sleep, which is a stressor on the body, has three hormones that it really messes up. It increases our insulin, decreases our leptin, which is that natural kind of cutoff that our body gives us to say, hey, stop eating, and increases ghrelin, which is our body's hormone that increases our appetite and wants us to eat more. And then the third one was like learned patterns with emotional connections around them. So celebrations, meeting with friends, feeling lonely or sad. That's another huge trigger for people oftentimes. And then exposure. So our environment, what we put ourselves around in terms of the foods that we're choosing. And then the last one was just like that brain reward pathway. So those very kind of hedonistic, highly palatable foods, the salty, fatty, sugary, we're going to want more and more of them. They're going to be triggers most likely for us. So the more what we eat, like what we're eating, we're gonna crave more of that. It's kind of like our brain is gonna want more of that, especially when it's related to those highly palatable foods. How are you guys doing? Are you with me? Give me a thumbs up, a like if you're hanging with me, that you're following. Write in any questions you have in the comments, and I'll make sure to get to them at the end, just so we can kind of keep a nice flow with the information. And if I miss it for any reason, sometimes I don't always see all the comments when I have the comments pulled up on my phone, I'll make sure to come back and answer it later. But we're gonna keep moving through. We're gonna move now into how we can use our diet, our nutrition, to help control our cravings. So some specific tools to optimize what we're eating so that we can not have as bad cravings. So I talked a little bit before of those triggers. Some of those are environmental, a few of those were nutrition related, but most of them are environmental. But I wanted to make sure you had that information because I think it's really important. It's a whole picture thing, If we're gonna work on having tools to control our cravings, just dealing with nutrition or just dealing with stress or just dealing with sleep or exercise, they're all part of the whole picture. So we really need to take it all into consideration, have all those different tools and different things to work on. I encourage you to maybe work on one at a time, where maybe you really focus in on optimizing your sleep, or you really work on stress management. Maybe then you move on to nutrition, so that you're not feeling overwhelmed with tackling everything all at once. And for different people, it'll be different things. Some people, they'll come to me for nutrition coaching, and what I'm actually not pushing on them, but encouraging them, that I see is the number one priority is sleep management, like optimizing their sleep and working on their stress. Those two are foundational, especially if you want to lose fat. And I think a lot of people that come to a dietitian or trainer, that's often what they're wanting, is fat loss or improving their muscle kind of shape of their body. Let me grab some water. All right, let me just check the comments really quick. Awesome. Hey guys, thanks for joining in. Okay, so now let's move on to specific nutrition tools. I've got about 5 different things I want to cover, and I'm going to highlight them because we're going to go a bit more in depth, and I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information. So the first one is to kind of like create your kind of key things that are your non-negotiables with nutrition. And when you have those in place, then you don't waste a lot of mental energy, and you're going to have your kind of like willpower saved up for those times when you're facing those triggers. So that's my goal for you guys, is that you have the foundation of your diet streamlined so that you're feeling good, you are optimizing your hormonal balance, and that's going to be about 80% of what you kind of do and eat. And then there's like 20% that's left kind of up to chance when you're eating out, maybe meeting someone, traveling. And those instances, that's when I want you to kind of reserve your willpower and your energy to focus on navigating those situations that are more trigger inducing. And for me, what I usually work with my clients and use for myself is a tool called the Streamline Nutrition Essentials, or SNEs. So Streamline Nutrition Essentials are 3 things that I try and do every day. That's my goal. And that really create that 80% or foundation of my diet that's pretty automated. It's pretty streamlined. I don't have to think about it too much. And when I do those 3 things, it basically helps me keep my hormones in balance. I don't need to worry too much, and I'm not going to be having a lot of cravings from having those too fatty, too sugary, too salty foods that can be trigger inducing. So what I really create as the foundation of my diet to achieve those 3 things is focusing on protein at my meals and snacks, making sure I stay hydrated, making sure I prioritize fiber, so fiber and protein at every meal, and working on kind of minimizing inflammation, including anti-inflammatory foods, which I'll just touch on. It can be a big topic. So that with that sort of arm of what I want to mention, anti-inflammatory is a big topic, but there's kind of 2 parts of it. Things that you kind of minimize or avoid so that you don't increase inflammation in your body, and then things that you include to help kind of provide your body with nutrients that are anti-inflammatory. And then last thing is to just this overall kind of idea of retraining your taste buds and retraining and reformulating your diet, and that it takes time, that it can just take process. I was just talking with a client earlier today, and we were kind of just sharing how she already had a really pretty good foundation with her nutrition, and how she's just taking it to the next level. And that's amazing. That's the goal, right? You do the best that you can and for what you know right now, and then when you have, when you're ready, when you're kind of plateaued and you're ready to take it to the next level, you put in a bit of energy and effort, you peel away another layer that's not serving you, and you elevate to the next level, and you improve the diet, and you have, improved energy. So it's always this opportunity to level up. And there can be kind of an obsession with that. So I don't want us to go into orthorexia, which is that obsession with always eating healthy and kind of getting out of control with it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about taking your time with this process. We have been eating, for me, for 37 years this way, or for me, when I started to really make changes, I've been like 32 years of eating behaviors and just the psychological kind of patterns, the emotional patterns that we really can develop over time take time to also break apart and take time to change. So what I want to encourage you is just to really think of it as a process of retraining your patterns. So first of all, I want to circle back. I mentioned the SNEs, the Streamlined Nutrition Essentials, and those for me are 3 things. And how I come up with them is I kind of start with all of the clutter that's in my mind about nutrition. So all the kind of like shoulds that I have around nutrition, like I should do this, I should do that. For instance, I should eat 6 meals a day to keep my metabolism revved. I should always eat breakfast. I should stop eating at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever, not eat at night. I should, what else? I always have protein with meals, you know, all these different things that we've heard, or I should do intermittent fasting, or I should do this, I shouldn't eat carbs, or I should only have carbs on this day, or all these things, right? There's so many nutrition shows that we have that we've learned from the diet industry, from people like me, from things we read, from magazines, from just media that we consume. So what I do is encouraging my clients to do is just to take a piece of paper and take 5 minutes and just write those all down. Just get them out of your brain. Stop kind of letting them clutter your mind and get them all on paper. And then there are some in there that can serve you. What are some ones that actually you already maybe do that you kind of find some ease with? I go through and I circle those. Okay, yeah, I usually always try and get protein with my meals. I really notice that feels good for me. I don't feel like I keep having to keep eating and eating and eating. Or maybe I'll go back and circle drinking a lot of water. Like for me, I always drink a ton of water in the morning, like get my hydration on early in the day, and that really helps control my cravings. When I don't do that, I notice that my cravings get really out of whack later on. So I go through, after I make that list, sit down and brainstorm for 5 minutes and get them all out on the paper. I go back through and circle the ones that kind of jump out at me that I'm like, yeah, these feel good. These are the ones that I already maybe are doing. And then what I do is go back and I just star 3. So 3 things that I kind of can see would be like good ones to capture that 80%, right? That we're trying to create that foundation of streamlining our nutrition so that we don't have to worry too much. It's just kind of pretty automated and easier. And then we reserve our willpower and energy for maybe that 20% that's sort of left to chance a bit with travel, maybe getting sick or the kids getting sick, all these things that can come up that are life. And so that's what you want to kind of star, just 3. I don't want you to do more than 3 because doing more than that, it spreads our energy out. It doesn't keep it concise. It doesn't keep us focused. So no more than 3. And for me, those are to have for lunch and dinner at least 50% of my plate filled up with low carb veggies. So lots of greens, lots of things like zucchini, peppers, not starchy vegetables. So at least 50% of my plate. I know that getting a lot of vegetables that are with tons of fiber and nutrients, that really helps me out. The second one for me is getting protein at all my meals. So at least 20 grams of protein at each of my meals. And that can be tricky for breakfast. That's usually the trickiest one to get the protein in. Lunch and dinner, not so much, especially I'm omnivore, so I eat meat and seafood and all those things. It can be a little trickier for vegans, especially, and vegetarians, but protein at all my meals, and these are unique to me, so yours might be different, so just mention that. And then the last one that's been my kind of recent one, which is my push one, that's kind of a stretch, that's kind of stretching me a bit, and that's to mindfully enjoy my treats by portioning them out and sitting down to enjoy them. And if I'm gonna have a treat, to do it that way versus mindlessly sitting or standing at the counter maybe, or eating out of the cupboard. I know that you guys maybe have done that yourselves, or walking and eating, all these things that we kind of like aren't paying attention to what we're actually eating and putting in our mouths. That had been a bad pattern for me. So that third one of really mindfully sitting down and portioning out my treat, if I'm gonna enjoy something, has been kind of my stretch SNE, my Streamlined Nutrition Essential. But I find that is so helpful, again, for helping to get that foundation where I'm not having my cravings triggered a whole lot. I just kind of, it helps me stop. It helps me break that pattern of just kind of consuming with mindlessness. Okay, so I want you to maybe do this. This is gonna be part of the tip sheet I'm gonna send out to you guys. I'm gonna include all this information about kind of what impacts our cravings, those triggers that I went through the first part. I'm gonna include some information on nutrition tools specifically to control your cravings, as well as guiding you through how to find your specific 3 streamlined nutrition essentials. And those, again, we want them to be that foundation. They want it to be pretty streamlined. For some of the ladies, I'm trying to think of, in the Magic Makers movement, we've been working through them. Now I can't remember. If you're in, I know some of you guys are listening, some of you ladies are listening, so put it in the comments, your SNEs if you feel comfortable. What are they? I think Krishnavai and Branka, you're listening in. I don't know if Juanita, you're on there. But if you don't mind sharing your SNEs with the group, that would be awesome, because I think it's helpful for people to have examples that aren't just mine, because it can be unique. For a while, mine was getting 1 big ass salad every day. It was drinking like at least 2 liters of water. They've shifted over time, and they should shift over time for you, so that you can really ebb and flow with what comes up in your life and what you're maybe facing in that phase of your life. If you're a new mom that's nursing, and maybe you need to really adapt to that phase of your life. Maybe you're retiring and you're going through menopause. You're going to go through a different phase and maybe need to adapt. What the goal is that with streamlining your nutrition, it's a diet and a way of eating that's forever, that can ebb and flow with your life, so that you don't feel that constant control from food, that food's running your life, but you're actually in control and you're aware, and having tools at your ready that you can just pull out and find ways to adapt to whatever that situation is in your life that comes up. Again, it takes time to shift the dial. It takes time to retrain your taste buds. So if you're someone that has maybe for a long time been eating, kind of like a lot of convenience food, a lot of those really highly palatable kind of hedonistic foods that really trigger the brain, it's going to take some time to find a new way to eat. So just starting with some small shifts where you maybe substitute some things in, where you have a healthier treat instead of maybe getting something from a vending machine. For instance, one of my clients used to always want to have the peanut M&Ms, and so I was like, well, what about trying like a natural nut butter with a piece of dark chocolate? And you still get that chocolate nut kind of hit, but you're moving away from that processed food that's easily accessible all the time, that you can kind of grab anywhere. And you're just starting to make some substitutes. Start there, and then further on, maybe you can make another shift that's going to peel off another layer that's not serving you. And for some of my clients that have already been eating pretty well, then they're making some tweaks, like just some patterns that kind of sneak in. For myself too, like where I'm drinking more beer and wine than I realized. Like I realized this last week, like, oh, I'm actually drinking more alcohol again than I thought I was. Like you just kind of like get into things where, oh, that kind of drink snuck in here and there, and that's okay. But I like to stay kind of cognizant of those things rather than letting it be in control of me. To let yourself be kind of aware of it, and then have a tool to adjust if it's starting to feel like a burden and starting to feel like it's not, where you feel like a slave to it. That's where we want to make the shift. Okay, let me just see if there's any comments or questions. So ladies who are, awesome. Krishna Vayu posting, no eating after dinner, lots of veggies and protein, and at lunch and dinner, I think is what. So a lot around vegetables and protein. Portion size is another one. So, like mine was like sitting down, portioning out. So you can take a look at those if you're watching this later on Facebook. You can check out those comments. And if you have any other comments though, or questions, please put them in the video below. I'm gonna make sure to answer them, or email me if you're on the Control Your Cravings course and not maybe you're catching this later and watching the replay. Just shoot me an email back and let me know if you have questions about what we're covering today. Again, I'm going to send out the tip sheet reviewing all the stuff that I went over today in this training to those on the list. So make sure you add your name and email. It's completely free for the Control Your Cravings newsletter, and that you'll be getting information sent, as well as step-by-step how to figure out your own streamlined nutrition essentials. Tomorrow, we're going to be going over the exercise portion. So we're going to go into how exercise is a stressor on our bodies and how it can really kind of be impacting our cravings and kind of make us crave things that we're not realizing, and also how we can maybe adjust our exercise to minimize those cravings as well. So hope you can tune in for that tomorrow. It's going to be at 12 noon Central Time, again here on the Body by Banner Facebook page. And I look forward to joining you guys again tomorrow. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.